Shut up and sit down.
What's up guys, I am Infinite Crow bringing you another Overwatch video, and this time it's on the massive changes that are coming to the PTR in the next day or two, and I do mean massive. We could be seeing a comprehensive change to the Overwatch meta going on in the next day or two. Now this video will be going through the changes that are going on. Now the changes to 6 heroes. It just so happens that they're listed alphabetically, so I will be going through them in the same order. The first is Anna, who's seeing a nerf. The first is that she'll be getting a nerf to her biotic rifle, which damage will be decreased from 80 to 60 per shot, and her biotic grenade will see an impact damage reduced from 60 to 30 and healing from 100 to 50. Now this is quite a big change to Anna. Anna has been in the meta for quite some time. Now obviously she is a support hero and primarily a healer, but she's been able to stand her own whenever she's been dived by sort of a Genji or a Tracer or Sombra, any of those sort of characters. They'd dive her, try to take her out in the back line, but Anna's been able to put them to sleep, to throw the biotic grenade and shoot them and do enough damage to actually take them out and sort of protect herself. This has obviously meant that Anna being able to do this, she's been insanely powerful and obviously been in the meta. But this could see an end to all of that. It now could be that Anna will still be a pretty good healer and maybe will be first pick, but we could see that she will actually need protecting now, and there will need to be the communication that if a Genji or Tracer or any of those sort of dive characters get into the back line and start damaging Anna, that there'll have to be some good team communication to take care of her, take care of them and protect her. Now I don't think, on the actual nerf that's happened, I don't think the nerf to both elements of her biotic grenade, I think it may be a little bit too much. I would have expected a nerf to either the damage or the healing, not both, as I think one or the other could have been enough, but these changes haven't gone live yet, so we'll wait and see how they turn up on the PTR and if they make it actually to the live environment. The next hero on the list is Junkrat, who's getting a buff. Junkrat's buff is quite a simple one, that he no longer hurts himself from his own explosions. Now this is arguably the smallest sort of change in this update, but it is an important one. Junkrat's problem has always been that his use is quite limited. Anytime there's a choke point, and in traditional sort of games you get obviously the Reinhardt standing in the front of it, protecting it with everyone else stood behind that shield, and Junkrat was great at being able to stand sort of off to the side or in the back line, just spamming into the choke point. But if the opposing team, or if your team ever breaks through that choke, then Junkrat becomes a little useless really, I suppose. He wasn't that great up close, his trap was up close and his bomb is obviously, but past that his sort of main primary fire was a little bit useless, and we could actually see a change to that, and it would make Junkrat more viable and more usable and more survivable as well as a hero and fighting up close. So this could actually see Junkrat, not necessarily, I don't think this will ever make Junkrat make him sort of a meta hero, but he'll certainly be more viable, and I don't think there'll be quite the hate or tilting if someone picks Junkrat on the team anymore. Next up is Irisa, who's getting a nerf. Now this isn't such an important change as she's still only been released on the PTR, but it's good to see that Blizzard are actually trying to get a balance before she goes live. The changes to Irisa is seeing that a primary fire, the Fusion Driver magazine, is being lowered from 200 to 150 rounds. This seems to be quite a good idea. I mean, it's a small reduction to damage, it just simply means she has to reload more often. but going on the rate of fire and how many sort of rounds that she could put out, as well as being able to create so many shields, it's a small, quite a relatively small nerf to her. But obviously on top of this is that she's also getting nerfed to her supercharger, which is Irisa's ult, which is the one that when placed down gives everyone a 50% damage buff to anyone that's in line of sight of it, and that applies to your whole team. So obviously you just, ideal world, place it somewhere where you can see everyone and preferably not get damaged. Now that's getting a cost increase of 15%, so effectively it will just take longer for you to get it as Irisa. So overall this is just a nerf to a damage output across the board, but it generally fits in with the sort of general theme of this update and these changes that are going on the PTR, that there'll be less of a tank meta going on and more a sort of dive comp, a quick paced gameplay going on, and it seems Blizzard are possibly trying to move away from that gameplay where you are just getting two Reinhardts facing off against each other and it becomes effectively a game of just wearing down the other Reinhardt until you eventually break through, or they break your Rein and you back off for a second try. Sombra is the next hero, and she's getting a buff. Now this is quite an interesting buff, especially talking about the fact of moving less tanky and more sort of dive comps. She's getting a reduction to the sound effects and distance for entering and exiting stealth, and it's being reduced to 15 meters. Now this is an interesting buff as it brings sort of Sombra back into the game, as she's not really that useful at the minute and a bit of an outside character, I think. Obviously we don't have the direct stats on it, but it's very rare that she's ever picked, and generally, I mean, I think most people have seen if she's ever picked in a game, some people will ask for that player to change and not play Sombra. This should mean that Sombra can get into the backline of an enemy team without having the massive announcement. Obviously under current sort of gameplay, Sombra sort of decloaks in the backline and you get that massive says I am here or something, I believe. I haven't actually played Sombra all that much since she got released, but obviously effectively there's the voice line that announces that that's Sombra in the back line, that's Sombra in the back line, thank you. Which obviously just makes everyone sort of turn around or someone break off from the main defence and deal with that Sombra that's got in the back line. But it's also interesting to note that it's being reduced to 15 meters, as I believe that Sombra can hack from 15 meters away. So if you're stood 15 meters and a step further away when you decloak, the enemy team won't know you're there. You can take one step, two steps forward and get on with hacking the team, which is obviously going to make it much more viable and really quite a counter to tanks, but especially Reinhardt, who will be obviously usually standing in the choke points. It's also an improvement as well that it's going to involve a lot of more team communication and effective communication, with the fact that the only way people and the rest of your team are going to know that there's a Sombra managed to get through into the back line is the fact if you tell them, or whoever it is that's getting attacked or hacked by her actually tells the team. Sombra's also getting a buff in the fact that her translocator is getting a cooldown reduction from 6 seconds to 4 seconds. It seems in a current form, Sombra's translocator is used mostly as the defensive mechanism. So it's put down somewhere, Sombra then goes invisible, runs through a choke and starts attacking the enemy, but if she gets into trouble then she can just hit the translocator and end up back in safety. But I'm thinking with it being reduced to 4 seconds, could we actually start to see Sombra's translocator being used aggressively and being thrown through a choke or something like that, just to get behind the enemy and actually help her deal with the sort of tanks or whoever it is stood in the choke point. Moving on though, the next character that is getting a buff is Winston. Now this is a massive change coming from Winston, in that his barrier cooldown will now begin from when it's placed, not when it is destroyed. This might actually seem like a relatively small change, but it really isn't. If you don't know, Winston used to be able to place his bubble, but if it wasn't destroyed, that bubble just stayed there, and Winston's cooldown timer wouldn't begin until it was destroyed. So if for any reason your bubble was ever placed in a not so great place and you got sort of forced out of your bubble, if the enemy team left that bubble where you placed it, then you would be unable to place another bubble, which obviously really hampered Winston and actually was a sort of a big problem for him. This is a bit of a surprise to me. I expected that the change for Winston in this respect would be that he would be able to destroy his bubble, a bit like make and destroy a wall. That the timer would remain the same, but effectively you'd be given a choice to be able to destroy your bubble. This should though mean that Winston is a lot more viable to play, in the fact that he will throughout a game have more bubbles that he can place down. It's also interesting that Winston's getting a bit of a buff when the next character, last but not least, is Zenyatta, is getting 2 buffs. And I'll sort of touch on why sort of the Winston buff is important, but there's other reasons as well. The first of Zenyatta's buffs is that his orb of destruction reduction, is being reduced from 1 second to 0.6 seconds, effectively meaning that you'll be able to use his alternative fire much more often. And this seems to be especially important with the second buff that Zenyatta's getting, as sort of his secondary fire is particularly useful against large targets like tanks. Now the second one, and this is probably the biggest change I think going into this PTR update, is that Zenyatta's Orb of Destruction, so his purple Orb of Death, can actually now target enemies through barriers. This is, I can't stress it enough, this is a massive change to the way Overwatch is going to be played, I think. So I can see that we'll still have a Reinhardt or an Irisa sort of defending a choke point, but I think this change would or should make it a lot easier to break through that choke point. I think this is massive, and I can't stress enough that I think this will have a massive change on sort of the game and the way it's played. I don't think these changes are going to really move Reinhardt out of the meta, and I think he's still going to be effectively an instant pick anytime you're going to be defending a choke point. But I think these changes are going to make it a lot easier to get through the chokes. And so sort of, if you just imagine a scenario, if you've got a Reinhardt standing at a choke, Zenyatta is going to be able to put his Orb of Discord on that Rein, and with the other changes, if you've got a Sombra that's cloaked and gone through, or you've got a Pharah flying in the air, or even a Winston as his Tesla cannon can fire through barriers, that means Reinhardt soon is going to quickly take damage. It's going to be a lot easier to kill, or even if you don't actually kill him, that's going to make the Reinhardt back off from the choke point, and hopefully sort of the rest of your team will flow through and you can really push the point and ultimately take the point. Now that's all the changes summed up, but as I said at the start of the video, this is not a change that has actually gone live yet on the PTR. It's a change that is due to go out in the next day or two. So for now this video is a bit of a speculation, but I think it's exciting to see these changes being made to the heroes and to Overwatch, and the continual sort of balancing and changing of this. But the important question is, are we finally seeing the end to the tank meta that's been going on for the last season and a half, 2 seasons? And are we seeing the end of Ana in the meta? Will this actually move Zenyatta into sort of Ana's place into the meta? This is all something that we'll have to wait and see. But with so many changes sort of being going on, let me know what you guys think of these changes. Do you think they're good? Do you think they're bad? Do you think more changes need to be made or not? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll bring in you future updates as they happen. Catch you later.